Mic check. Mic check. Let's see. Got everything going. Welcome, everyone. I'm a little green on doing this, but just wanted to kind of share my thoughts with the Forza community, Xbox community, in regards to the upcoming Forza Motorsport. Not too long ago, they had a car list of all of the 500 plus cars. Well, they didn't have the full 500 car list, but there was supposed to be about 500 cars at start. And they went through some of their most recent add-ons. And more recently, they've had to make an adjustment to that list where 6 of those cars that were prominent in some of the replays and the Forza Monthly, where they went into deeper detail, have been removed from that list. And I know it's got a few people disappointed, some confused, a few people upset. And I kind of fall in between the confused or disappointed area, I guess you could say, more so than anything. But some of the coolest cars that they showed recently were think of the IMSA prototype cars. They had one of the Cadillacs, basically the DPi-V.R car, the Whelen racing car, which won the championship, I believe, in 2021 and 2020. Mainly in 2021. They're not going to have that as part of the base game. Along with about 5 other cars. There was an Audi that's a Group 3 or a GT3 car that they had in there, a Ginetta car that's also one of the kind of the prototype cars. They had 2 Porsches. One is an old school 80s racing Porsche, and then the other one is a fairly recent, a 935 or 2019 Porsche racing car, or kind of a step down from GT3 racing. It's more like your GT or Clubman kind. And then they had an Oreca car that's not going to be in there as well, which, while these cars are definitely highly anticipated on my end, being a big IMSA fan and racing fan when it comes to motorsports in general, with these cars not being there, it's a little bit of a disappointment in the sense that some of the cars they've shown into great detail not being there as far as the base game, but they will be part of what Forza typically does is they make a car pass, and their car pass is the additional content where they will give you a couple of cars every so many weeks. There'll be a list of them that you'll automatically have put into your garage that you'll be able to use for various races. And it looks like that's going to be the case for some of those cars that they've pulled from the list. Now, the disappointing part is they're showing these, but I started thinking more about it. When it comes to licensing for these games, I'm getting the impression that putting something in there like the Cadillac, which they've kind of pulled out of racing at this point, it's probably one of those where normally Forza games have to be delisted after about 5 or 6 years. And I get the impression that this is going to be more of a service game where it'll have a lifespan beyond a 5-year period, where they'll add tracks, add cars, add events, and things like that. If those cars were part of the base game, then they would probably have to pull them from the base game. When things are DLC, typically the game can stay intact. And if you bought that DLC, you own it, you'll always have access to it, but it will just basically disappear from the store in 5 or 6 years. So at the 5-year mark, if you didn't already pick up that car pass, which typically those are by themselves, they're around $20, give or take. If you do the upgrade, it'll be a full 50, but that full 50 typically comes with a lot more content on top of the car pass. If you don't pick it up by that 5th or 6th year, where it'll probably be on sale for $5 or less at that point for just the car pass, then you'll lose access to it, or the opportunity to have access to it. So it kind of makes sense to some regard for the long term of this game. And I figure with them building everything from the ground up, they're really looking to push the envelope as far as having a good foundation to build upon constantly, whether it be different modes of racing, different focuses, whether it be drag racing, Pikes Peak type stuff where it's time attack racing and things like that. So having it where some of these cars aren't tied directly to the base game will allow them that freedom to kind of keep, a majority of the baseline or that foundation live and purchasable and whatnot. And then just the DLC will be the things that, they can see about renewing, like maybe Cadillac comes back to racing and, in 2026. And by that point, they'll have the license again. And then you'll have the newer version of that car that you can purchase at that point. Or maybe they'll do it as like a seasonal reward type of deal. But yeah, definitely looking forward to this game. As a lot of you in the Xbox community or just the gaming community in general, that I play a lot of racing games, a lot of Forza Horizon, a lot of Forza Motorsport. And I typically wind up having a lot of hours as of more recent in GT7. And the only reason why I play more GT7 now than Forza winds up being because of there's one feature that they did well with GT7 that allows you to create your own racing list, not just pick the track, the time of day and stuff like that, which you can do all of that in Motorsport 7, which is awesome. And I applaud them on having that feature from a game that now is well over a 5-year-old game and still has, a lot of content that's pertinent to this day. But the one thing they don't allow you to do is necessarily pick the paint schemes of the cars you're competing with. So if you wanted to recreate a IMSA race, unless you're doing like an online race against other players where each one of you decides to pick a particular car and paint scheme from that historic race, that would be the only way to kind of recreate that. Unless you do it on PC, then mods will allow you to reskin your competitors' cars. The current way they have it is your competitors' cars, especially if it draws from your friends list for the drivatars, it will pick more than likely either the most popular car skin that was downloaded or one that they may use directly. It doesn't always work out that it's one that your friends use directly, but more times than not, it's either the most popular or one that they've actually used. So if you have a friend that wants to have like the Naya Cat paint scheme instead of like a one from Le Mans, you'll have that mixed up in the race. But that's the only thing like right now that I hope that they look at from GT7 and kind of borrow some of that. One of the things that they're already borrowing from like previous GTs is the time of day progression, which that's a huge step up as far as being able to simulate the change of day or the we're starting a race in the daytime and going into night, and things along those lines. But definitely looking forward to that as far as the upcoming title and stuff. But yeah, just wanted to touch base on that car list. I know that there were a few people that were kind of just want to say hi to everybody that's in the chat. Sorry, I hadn't had a chat window open on my computer that I'm doing the stream on, but thank you guys for showing up and showing out and everything. But yeah, definitely looking forward to the upcoming Forza game. But for some of those that were upset or confused on that car list change, it looks like a lot of it might have to tie into licensing in the long term. So my recommendation, much like I always do with a Forza game, if you want some of those additional cars, definitely do the premium pack or the upgrade, not just for those cars, but a lot of the other stuff that comes along with it. And then that way it guarantees that you'll have those, from get-go. But if there's anyone here that has any questions in reference to any things particular that they're either excited about with Forza Motorsport or even Forza Horizon, because I know we have the rally DLC coming up here at the 28th of this month and stuff. And the more and more I see it, the more and more I get excited about it. I originally was thinking it was a little underwhelming, but they went into a great length to kind of recreate the whole, rally car racing genre Although you don't have the co-pilot in car, you'll have a helicopter, which is kind of cool to see that while racing through some of those tracks and things like that. And they'll definitely do the improvement on like the exhaust note and the turbo and the backfiring and all that from the exhaust and stuff like that. So definitely looking forward to all of that. But man, oh man, it's a great time to be a gamer in racing or just car enthusiasts in general. Later this year, we're already getting some info, but later this year, Test Drive Unlimited or Solar Crown Unlimited should be coming. We have hopefully Motorsport. I know it's not going to be in that 12-month window. Upset, but not to the point where, you know, I rather them have that foundation built and ready to go and everything, you know, to build forward as far as content from there forward, as opposed to kind of releasing it early and making it where it was like Motorsport 5, where you only have like 100 cars at launch and only like 20 or so added over time, and not as many tracks as a lot of their later titles. Having it where they have more time to get everything in order at launch makes it that much better as far as having variety of cars. Like if you're not really into like some of the prototypes or GT3 cars and things like that, having the extra time so they can focus possibly on NASCAR again, which Motorsport Games has kind of spoiled or soiled the NASCAR licensing if you're a NASCAR fan in racing as far as on your console or PC. It would be awesome if Forza could get that again, because Motorsport basically bought the licensing, took it away from like EA, which they've had their ups and downs on their titles. And then they bought out that Monster Games company that used to have the title for Heat, which their titles were fine. It was just that they only did incremental updates. But yeah, for the most part, I'm hoping that they get a lot more licenses. Do I think they'll ever bring bikes? Whew. I would hope so. Like now, it's tough to get the feel of motorcycle racing just right. Like Drive Club did it later on, and it kind of feels right to some extent, but it doesn't have that feel when you come out of the turn, as far as when you go to get on the accelerator, because sometimes games will over exaggerate the amount of wheel spin, and other times they'll have it where they kind of get it right, but then it makes the, you know, passing or drafting off of other bikes a little hard. But I would really like to see Turn 10 and even Playground Games take their hand at doing like motorcycles as well. There's a handful of games out there. There's like Ride, there's TT Man of the Isle. That game is a little bit tougher and less forgiving on the controls. It is, I won't say accurate, but it does give you a good sense of how the bike goes from cornering and acceleration out of the corner to some extent, but it is very unforgiving. Like once you get the throttle control down, you'll be much better for those games. But I would like to see, just knowing how Turn 10 and Playground add more adjustments, so that way you can kind of tweak things where things like traction control or yaw and pitch and stuff like that can be tweaked to your liking. Not to make it like an easy mode, but like some people are going to definitely have a hard time accelerating out of a turn in a very accurate motorcycle model. And then if you could kind of make that a little bit more forgiving across the board, or at least have those options, I think they could nail it as far as having that as an add-on or just another mode in the Forza franchise. Like I said, Drive Club tried it, not too bad, but it was like at that point that game was already on the way out kind of deal because of the abysmal launch that they had. But yeah, motorcycles would be a huge update if they could do something like that. I know they had motorcycles in, what is that, Project Gotham Racing, as far as with the previous racing titles on Forza. Now, I didn't really come into Forza Motorsport until Motorsport 5, So I don't know if they had motorcycles in the motorsports franchise prior. I know they didn't really have true motorcycles in any of the Horizons. They've had like the 3-wheel cars, like it's not the Triumph, but they had like I think it's the Morgan, and there was another one that they had that's basically like a motorcycle with 3 wheels. Those they've had in the Horizon, but as far as motorsport, I don't recall any motorcycles. But if they were to add them, it would be a definite, nice change of pace. And I know someone even had asked while we were on when I was on the Shop podcast about if they were to do boats or something kind of as like a add-on for like a future Horizon. I'd be, pretty curious or pretty excited to see something along those lines as well. Other than the jet ski, I've never really boated. I mean, I've been on bigger ships, but nothing like a speedboat or anything like that. And I'd be curious to see how they would handle that, and what the layouts would be like if we're going to be at the Florida, waterfront or something along those lines, with some of the speedboats that they've had with racing down there. But things like that would be pretty cool if they did it as an add-on. But man, oh man, awesome time to be into racing. I mean, there's always the tried and true things like Assetto Corsa. I know a lot of people still like R Factor 2. I'm still a stand for NASCAR Racing 2003. One, because of the NASCAR fan, and two, the mods that came out of that game, where there were people that were able to manipulate the 3D model and the handling to accommodate for IndyCar, and they already had like the Grand Prix cars and the Legends cars and things like that from before. You had the Truck Series in that model. You had like what then was called the Busch Series, which I guess is called the Xfinity Series now, in that model as well. And just it was like a modder's haven until the guy or one of the guys from Papyrus left and went and started iRacing and tried to shut all of that down. But yeah, you'll still find some people that are doing like leagues and racing in NASCAR Racing 3. But man, oh man. But didn't want to hold you guys up here too long. Just wanted to do a brief thing on the car list. I'm going to try some more of these as time goes on, like some of my thoughts on features I'd like to see. Like I know I've mentioned paintable driver suits and helmets. I know it doesn't really add to the racing, but it helps with the immersion. Like if instead of having like a chicken suit or like a spaceman suit or something like that, which there's nothing wrong with those, have those as like reward driver suits, but would really like to have one that has like, maybe SCCA or like Michelin tire printed on it. And, if I have like a trophy or a championship from like the career mode, have that on like the shoulder or something. So that way you could, kind of dress it up that way, or do like a custom flame helmet and things like that. Those would be pretty cool to have those features. But there's so much that I would like to see. And they've, like I said earlier, they already are doing the time of day progression thing, which if you ever seen any of my replays on my channel, there's a few times when I'm at Daytona, I start in the day and the race ends at night. And that, even though it seems silly to have it where, time is like moving at 15 times the speed of time, it just doing a couple laps in the day, a couple laps in the evening, and then a couple laps at night as that time goes on is just like one of the coolest things, and makes it feel like you're actually in the race kind of thing. But once again, thank you all so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed this, kind of like brief chat, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Be on the lookout for more of this. If you have any questions or suggestions, definitely leave them in the chat or in the comments below. But overall, looking forward to Forza Motorsport. Looking forward to talking more about motorsport stuff. I know I've been playing games more than discussing games, and I want to kind of get a good balance and do it both. But thank you again so much for everyone that came out. Greatly appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day, and look forward to future shows. Take care.